Well, hello everyone and welcome to The Weird Man. This is episode 5 of series 2. The Weird Man is an access for leadership for everyone. Now, last week I spoke about your leadership project. You have one, and usually many leadership projects right in front of you. You've got to identify them to make any sense of this work. If you haven't done so, go back to episode 4 to go through the project identification instructions. Make a list of all the leadership projects you can see that in your life you have already got them on the go. And some things in your life are not yet in the form of leadership projects, but they should be. Your life as leader is your life. The only question for you is what your life is, what you want your life to be, and what you want your world to be. Anywhere there is a discrepancy between the situations of what your life is and what you want your life and the world to be is the arena of your leadership. Now, who you are is not the entity that you think you are, because there is a way you experience yourself and the world through your senses, either directly or scientifically or intuitively or psychically. You are a bigger reality of infinite dimensions, really. As our state of thinking and sensing, who we are really is inaccessible in any but indirect methods. There are two primary methods that give you access to who you are really. The first is getting that who you are really is bigger than anything that shows up for you as you and the world. And the second is being and in action as virtue, spirituality, and the generation of futures is access without turning to any other mystical practices. These two primary methods are ontological, that is, states of being, rather than epistemological, that is, states of knowledge. As states of being, they are access to you as being a leader and your leadership. These are the states, the being, the world you dwell in the realization of your leadership projects, the futures that weren't going to happen anyhow for you and your life. When you are living, even if momentarily, as that you have gotten that who you are really is bigger than anything that shows up for you as you, and being as accessed by the language of virtues, spirituality, and the generation of futures, then you have access to the larger, vast dimensions of the larger reality. You have access to the larger reality. You can't see that. You can't feel that. You can't build a tool to see or measure or find evidence for that. You have access. It is the water in which who you are really lives. And lives like there is nothing there except the living. You're living in the bigger reality of who you are really, and your access as the language of virtue, spirituality, and the generation of futures is the clearing for your leadership projects and everything that is required for the realization of those futures. The clearing of your leadership projects is a rendition in the three-dimensional space, one-dimensional time matrix of who you are really. A rendition. The clearing invites and attracts all the requisite tools and techniques and ways of being for the project. The larger reality, however, does not work like the smaller three-dimensional one-time matrix reality. Rather, your being as the language of virtues and spirituality and the generation of futures that is your leadership project has the effect like creating wormholes in the matrix of the larger reality, connecting elements from disparate parts of the small reality. These connections are functions of your being, the language of virtues and spirituality, rather than any purposefulness on your part. In other words, your being the language of virtues and spirituality in the living of the future of your leadership project automatically creates the connections by way of the larger reality, so that a new rendition appears in the smaller reality, the one we seem to think is our reality. In this smaller reality, you will have the sense that your purposefulness is making things happen. How your purposefulness shows up in the clearing of your leadership requires mastery of the language of virtues, spirituality, and the generation of futures. LoV-SG. LoV-SG producing purposefulness is also defining access to the larger reality. In the larger reality, disparate elements related to your purposefulness are drawn into the clearing of your leadership. These disparate elements show up as a new network, a new structural possibility, and it will appear as if seemingly by serendipity. For every virtue you are able to consider, for every effort you need to bring to the realization of that virtue, multiplies the serendipitous effects that show up for your leadership project in this smaller reality. While you are talking and being the language of LoV-SG, and while you aren't looking except through the language of LoV-SG, your leadership project is emerging whole and complete. A word of caution. Great access to the language of virtue, spirituality, and the generation of futures brings great movement in the larger reality and the rendering of that movement in the smaller reality. You will require great mastery over the LoV-SG to bring about great movement in the larger reality. Until then, it will seem as if barriers and difficulties and failures abound. The greater your mastery over LoV-SG, the greater the forces aligned against you in this smaller reality. The greater your mastery over LoV-SG, the greater the possibility of your death, either directly or indirectly by those forces. There is nothing to worry about here. Your mastery will remove your fear of threats, and while threats, real or imagined, continue to frighten you, you may have confidence of LoV-SG. You may realize mighty futures, and you will have mastery ahead of you. This completes Series 2. I'll be back in 2020 with an exploration of leadership projects in my community and around the world. You can bring your leadership project here, or you can take a look at my leadership course, Conversations in Leadership, and you'll find the link to that course right here after this. Bye for now.